Hello, welcome. My name is Abhijit Roy, and my background is mostly in media and entertainment. I've worked in movies and computer games in the field of visual effects and animation. And I recently got associated with Orofilm to showcase some of my very favorite animated movies and doing these film appreciation presentations for those movies. This is my first one here. I welcome you. I'm presenting a film called Song of the Sea, and it is one of my favorite movies. And the studio that made this film in recent times has become one of my favorite studios. They are a 2D animation studio. They strictly do work with hand-drawn animation. And to start the presentation, I would just like to play a small clip from the movie to bring everybody in the mood of the movie. So, Philip, could you just...
This is an ancient shell that my mother gave me a long time ago. Hold it to your ear and listen carefully. You will hear the song of the sea. Keep listening.
Between the north, between the south, from the shell, the song of the sea, neath the pole of no quiet. Love again. Whoa!
Yeah, so it's not coming soon. It released in 2014. This was just the teaser. And let's see if this works. Okay. So this movie was released in 2014. It was produced by a studio called Cartoon Saloon, which is based in a city called Kilkenny in Ireland. And it was directed and produced by Tom Moore. It was co-produced. He co-produced this movie with his partner and producer, Paul Young. A little tidbit about them: they are actually both animators professionally before they became film directors and producers. And Tom Moore himself came up with the idea. We'll dwell into how he got the idea a little later. But once he got the idea, he shared it with his friend, Will Collins, who wrote the script of the movie based on the idea and the story that Tom Moore came up with. So to make this movie, this is the second movie that they're making, which is a feature-length movie. They actually built a studio in Ireland by the name Cartoon Saloon. And Cartoon Saloon is basically an animation film, short film, and television studio. So these are the fields in which this studio makes movies or commercials or short films. And they are based in a town called Kilkenny in Ireland. Next, I'm going to show you one of their show reels to showcase the kind of work that they were doing in film, TV, and short films. So if you could just play the... So as you can see from their portfolio, that they really, really favor 2D hand-drawn animation. And because of all the small work that they were doing for television and commercials, they actually eventually got enough budget to do a feature film. And with that budget, they did their first film, The Secret of Kells. So The Secret of Kells was an adaptation of a story, the story behind the making of the Book of Kells. So Book of Kells is an illuminated manuscript from the 9th century that was created in Ireland. And there is a folk tale which tells the story behind the making of that book. And based on that story, the first movie was made, The Secret of Kells. So it is described as a colorful, tender fantasy based around the Book of Kells. And when they mean based around, they means the making of the book, how the book was made, the story behind that. And this movie was mostly, since they were not a very well-known studio, was initially mostly only released in film festivals. They did not get a commercial release initially. But during those, the rounds that this movie was making in the film festivals, they were picked up and got a limited release in US. Now this actually worked out very well for them because of that limited release, they actually got nominated for an Oscar in the year 2010. So the movie was released in 2009 and it got a limited release in the US. And because of its presence in the US, it got nominated for an Oscar. And this basically put the studio on the map because getting nominated for an Oscar is a very big thing in the media industry. And one of the important effects that this movie had on the industry, other than making the studio very popular, is that it revived the era of hand-drawn animation that was there before the release of the 3D animated movie Shrek. Now, Shrek was a turning point in the animation industry because it was it used a formula to tell a story which not only became very successful because Shrek was one of the highest grossing movies of the year that was released in, but it also set a trend. Because it was so successful, everybody wanted to repeat the formula. And then after Shrek, there was a huge number of movies which were released in the 3D animation medium, which became very popular. Some of them were good, but most of them were horrendous. Mainly because of the formula that Shrek used. Shrek was the first movie in 3D animation which parodied fairy tales. It made a parody out of it. It made fun of these story tales. The story tales were told in a very, very modern humor standards, which really took away from the story, and it made more important how the story was told than the actual story. And another thing it did, that the formula that they used, that for the voice work, they would mostly cast celebrities. So celebrities like Mike Myers, Will Smith, Alec Baldwin, these people were cast to do the voice work. So because of the popularity of the actors, the movies gained more success. And this formula worked, so the industry completely moved to this formula rather than doing the hand-drawn 2D animation. This was not a good thing for the industry, in my opinion. But the bright light was that there were still some studios which were very, very well reputed and still were doing 2D animation work. I cite here Studio Ghibli, which is a Japanese animation studio. And they kept coming out with 2D animation movies. One of my favorite movies is The Tale of Princess Kaguya. And it is completely done in 2D animation. And also, even major studios like Disney maintained, although they were releasing 3D animated movies, they still maintained some aspect of 2D animation through their short films. So one of their most pioneering short films was Paperman, which not only became very, very popular, but also through this movie, they released some new technology which was used for 2D animation, which made it easier to do hand-drawn animation, other than, as opposed to the very, very labor-intensive process which goes behind doing hand-drawn animation. So because of these works, the hand-drawn animation industry was alive, but it was not thriving. Then came Secret of Kells in the year 2009. And just by getting nominated for the Oscars, it brought the standard of this studio, the Cartoon Saloon studio, in the same level as Pixar and Disney. So they were being counted as one of the most reputed animation studios in the world, even though they were from a very small town, a very small studio, but they were being measured at the same level as Disney and Pixar. To show the contrast, The Secret of Kells, the entire film production budget was $7 million, as opposed to a major Pixar animated movie, Pete Docter's Up, whose budget was $175 million. Yeah, of course, Up went on to win the Oscar that year. So, it says, but Up is a good movie. It's not one of those movies which made fun of fairy tales. So this is just to show you how the industry was when Secret of Kells was released. So coming back to Song of the Sea. Song of the Sea was released in 2014. It was preceded by Secret of Kells. And after the success of Song of the Sea, the third movie that they made was Wolfwalkers, that was released last year. And I can assure you that it is an amazing movie, and it garnered huge praise from the industry from the point of view of storytelling and just the art of making animated films. Song of the Sea became the second movie. We are today going to explore this movie. Although you can see that there are 3 movies, and now, after the release of Wolfwalkers, they are known as the Irish Folklore Trilogy. But this was never the intention of the director. The director did not intend to make 3 movies about the Irish folk tales. Just for an extra tidbit, these are not the only 3 movies this studio has made. They made another movie which is not related to Irish folklore called Breadwinners. And I would encourage everybody to watch that movie. It's an amazingly beautiful movie. But these 3 movies became a trilogy because of their connection to the Irish folklore. Now, coming to where the director got the idea for the movie, this is not a very pleasant story. Something bad happened, which led to the director coming up with the idea of making this trilogy, including Song of the Sea. So at some point of time, the director was on holiday with his 10-year-old son in a nearby town called Dingle. And Dingle has a very famous beach called Ventry Beach. And when they were holidaying in Dingle, father and son went for a walk on the beach. And to their horror, they saw multitudes of dead seals on the beach. And they were shocked to see so many dead seals. So when they started inquiring about what was going on, they came to know that these seals were actually attacked and killed by the local fishermen. Because of the presence of these gray seals, the fishermen blamed the seals that the seals are eating all the fishes, and then they are not able to get any fish stock. So they were actually killing these seals so that there would be more fish for them to fish. So this happened, and then when they were very disappointed, and when they came back to their hotel, they spoke with the lady in charge of the hotel about this, and she came back with a response that this was happening because the people don't respect and love nature and animals around us the way we used to. And her point of view was that this is because people, us, we are losing touch of our folk tales. We are not given folk tales generation to generation like it was done earlier. And her point was that the folk tales actually show the connection between us as humans with our surroundings. And just because we are not in touch, our children, even us as a generation, are not in touch with our folklores, we are actually losing touch with the nature around us. So we don't feel any guilt or any sense of injustice happening when we are destroying the natural things around us, including animals and plants. So this really struck with Tom Moore, because the lady said that a few years back, maybe 10 years back, a decade back, people would never attack seals. Because seals, one of them would be considered, few of them would be considered a fairy creature called Selkie, which is a creature which is human and seal. They can turn into from human to seal by wearing a coat, which turns them into a seal. And these Selkies were known to hold the souls of the people who died, and mostly the people who were lost at sea. So since these people lived next to the sea, they were mostly fishermen. So they had family and friends who had died at sea. And the folk tale said that these Selkies actually held their souls. So they would respect them, they would never attack them, they would never harm them. But since we have lost touch with all these tales, we don't care. You know, we only care about greed. We only care about what we want. So we don't really care. It never touches us because as children, we never heard those stories. They are not part of our culture anymore. And since we are losing touch with that, the whole phenomenon of storytelling of folk tales, we are losing touch with nature. So this really struck Tom Moore, and I will quote him. I realized that these were stories that we were losing. That connection to the landscape, that folklore was dying out. I was hoping to make a film that reinvigorated the folklore for the kids of my son's generation. And I thought an animated film would be an ambitious vehicle to do that with. So with this idea, with this background, Tom Moore went on to make The Secret of Kells, which is, of course, a folktale. And then, while they were doing the production of Secret of Kells, they came up, this incident happened, and he came up with the idea of telling a story about Selkies, which is the story we see in Song of the Sea. And even the third movie, The Wolfwalkers, is again about our fight with nature, where we are destroying forests, and how it affects the animals, in that case, the wolves, and how they respond to our invasion into their space. So, now coming to the actual story of Song of the Sea, it is the story of a 10-year-old Irish boy named Ben, who discovers that his mute sister, Saoirse, who he blames for the death of his mother, but during the course of the movie, he realizes that she's a Selkie and he needs to save her so that she can go on a journey where she saves the fairy folk from the Celtic goddess Macha. So this is the overall story arc. Now what I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to first go through the production pipeline. What was the steps that were taken to make this movie. And then I will talk about the visual presentation and the storytelling that was undertaken in this movie. And through that, I will give this presentation. So starting with, okay. So one of the most important things in animated movies is voice casting as opposed to casting. Because in animated movies, the people you cast never really act in front of the camera, but their voice is recorded, and that is used as a tool for the animators to animate. So this will also speak about the production pipeline of how a production of an animated movie is actually different from the production of a live action movie. So the first thing that they have to do is once they have the story in place, they have to actually cast the people who are going to voice the characters. So in this case, an Irish actor, child actor, David Rowley, was cast to voice the 10-year-old boy. There are scenes in the movie where they show a younger Ben also, but that was a very minor cast, and the director actually just cast his own nephew to voice young Ben. And then the movie is carried through by David Rowley as the character of Ben. Then we have a returning actor, Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson is a very celebrated, one of my favorite Irish actors and film director also. He not only gained popularity in Ireland, but also internationally. He has worked in many, many of my favorite Hollywood movies also. And he strongly supports Tom Moore in his venture. So he not only took part in this movie, he actually also played the part of the abbot in Secret of Kells, one of the characters in Secret of Kells. So he returned to support Tom Moore. Then there's Fionnuala Flanagan, who is again a veteran Irish actress. She's done more theatre work than film, but she does film also, and she does television also. She also came on. So she came on to voice two characters: the character of the grandmother and the character of Maka, the antagonist of the movie. Lastly, Lisa Hannigan. It's a pleasure to mention her. She's a musician and a voice actress, and she did the voice of the mother, who is mostly absent in the movie, but through her voice and the song that she sang for this movie, her presence is felt throughout the movie. So there's a song which you saw in the trailer, the Song of the Sea. She was the one who sang it and voiced the mother of the children. So these people were cast, and then the actual production starts. So once the production starts, once they have the story in place, they have to go through a stage called concept and character design. So at this stage, they will bring in some artists to draw some drawings to show the mood, the feel, the color palette, the character's design, everything that is going to be on the frame in the form of stills. So they will just draw some drawings and paintings to show the overall look of the film. This stage is called look development. The entire look, the color palette, the temperature, the different places that the characters will visit are designed at this stage. So this is the birthday scene at the beginning of the movie. This is when the granny is taking the children away from their house. This is the concept design that was done for the city. I will talk about each place in a separate part of the presentation, and what decisions were taken to design these places. This is the underworld that the boy visits when he is trying to rescue his sister. And this is the final scene in the movie where the boy gets his redemption by saving his sister. And then I'll show you a few examples of the characters. So this is the granny character, the father character, the dog, Saoirse, the Selkie character, Ben, who is the central character of the film, Brona, this is the character of the mother. So those are all the characters which are in the movie. The major characters. Of course, there are many, many small characters. So now what I want to do is I want to show you a small clip, and I will request Philip to play the video, and I'll ask him to pause at certain places so that I can talk about what's going on in that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Please pause. So as you can see, as I mentioned, the production pipeline is a little flipped in animated movies. So once they have all the ideas in place, the first thing that they have to do is cast and do voice recording. This is opposite of what is done in live action movies. In live action movies, first the entire shooting is done, and either they choose to use the sound which was recorded during the shoot, which is called sound sync, or they choose to re-record all the dialogue at a later stage, and that is called ADR. So that's called additional dialogue recording, which is done after the entire production is finished. So that's a post-production process. Here, it is the first stage in production. So you can see that first the voice recording is done. Please play. And then this is the inside of the studio. The animators and all the people, all the artists who are working on the movie will take that sound and then animate all the characters based on the sound. So all the body movements, all the dialogue, all the lip syncing is done after the voice recording. They get the voice and then they start actual production on the movie. Please play. So for this, please pause. For this, this was a co-production. Cartoon Saloon, the Irish studio, led the production, but they didn't do it alone. They co-produced it with 4 studios around Europe. So one was in Ireland, one was in Belgium, one was in Denmark, and one was in Luxembourg. So those are the 4 studios. Pause, please. And now what you're seeing is the actual production pipeline. So even though it is hand-drawn, when you are working with multiple studios, they have to share a lot of information across each other. So they use something called an asset management software. So everything that you create, whether it's the characters, whether it's the props, whether it's the sets, whether it's the locations, everything is actually an asset which is shared between these studios, so that everybody is maintaining the visual feel of the movie is consistent. If everybody shares the data, then the overall look of the movie stays consistent. Okay, so they have to use this asset management software through which they share various assets. Please pause. Sorry. So the thing that you just saw, yeah, this is the stage in which hand-drawn animation is done today. So this, although it is hand-drawn, it is not done on paper anymore. Paper-based production is very, very tedious, very, very expensive, and what you can do digitally now would take double and triple the time if you're doing it on paper. So what you're seeing here is basically a Cintiq screen. It's a device which is created by a company called Wacom. And they basically use this device to enable the artist to directly draw on the screen. So they can create all their artwork directly digitally without the process of making it on paper, scanning it, and then getting it in the computer, and then doing the alignment and whatnot. So scene development happens at the same time while they are creating the assets in the scene. So it is important to know that even though it is hand-drawn, the entire process is digital. There is no, so it's called paperless animation. Please go on. Okay, so this is where the next step comes, that once all the, while all the look development is going on, the animators will actually start animating scenes. Okay, and there are few animators who are the senior animators. They are known as key animators. So they only animate, they only create the keyframes. So keyframes are the frames in an animation which are important, where some change is happening. So they will only create the keyframes, the important frames in the animation, and present it in a slide like this, and it's called an animatic, which is blocking of the animation. So it's not the actual animation, you only see the keyframes, the key poses. And then, so they will do a rough work like that, because when they are creating first time, it's very rough. And then there will be a cleanup artist who will come in, and he will clean up all the lines so that you get all the poses in a very, very clean presentation. Okay, and then the director approves, and then it goes to the next step. So animatic and posing are important stages in production. Go on. So you can see only important keyframes are there. Again, some artist is doing that. Now, after the after the keyframes are done, another artist who is known as an in-betweener. So for an animation to play smoothly, we need 24 frames to play, 24 frames as in 24 drawings to play back to back every second. This is based on the illusion of life, where our eyes start believing that there is motion if number of images are played at least 12 frames per second. And to get very, very smooth, we go up to 24, and film has 25. And then North American format has 30 frames in 1 second. So film, since this is a film, we stick to 25 frames. So in those 25 frames, there will be a few keyframes. So let's say there are 3 keyframes in 1 second. The rest of the 21 frames or 22 frames have to be drawn by another artist. So this is a junior artist. So he will pick up the keyframes and try to draw the in-between frames. Okay, so he's known as an in-betweener. Once that process is done and approved, you get the animation. So you heard 2 words, animatic and animation. So animatic is only the poses, the keyframes, and animation is the smooth finished animation. Once that is done, then the department of ink and paint will come in, and they will do the filling of colors and outlines. So ink will do the outlines, and paint will do the filling of the colors based on the concept design. Okay, you can play, please. And then you get the finished film. So that's the basic overall pipeline of a film. And then you can see some snippets of animators discussing. Maybe their creative director comes in and gives some suggestions, and then you get the look and feel of the final movie. Please pause. So there are some things here that you can see that could be hand-drawn or hand-painted. And there are some things which are added in post using softwares like After Effects or Nuke. So those are called post-production effects. So there will be some things which is not possible to do with hand or would take too much time. They would just use some tools and effects in some software to do that to increase the production pipeline. So it's not that digital tools are not used. They are used, but they are only used to enhance. They are not used to create the actual look and feel. Please go on. So maybe bubbles, maybe glow. These are added in post. So again, yeah, pause. So again, just to show you a comparison, this is the concept design. So this is not in the film. This is a painting that an artist has made. And what you're seeing in the film will actually differ a little bit from the actual design, the concept design. And this happens because an artist who is drawing concept design is drawing just a still frame. And he may draw many, many lines in that frame. But when you go to animate it, one of the key challenges is how can you convey the same concept with reducing the number of lines. Because everything that has to be animated, every line that has to be animated has to be drawn 25 times in a second. So there is a process in which they minimalize the use of lines. And that is why the concept design will not exactly precisely match what you see in the final film. Okay? So that is a painting, and this is an animated frame.
No. Everybody
This is very visible in this scene. Let it go on.
One big happy family.
Please pause. So you can see that the artist has actually designed a pretty detailed cake. Whereas in the film, the cake is probably just 3 lines. Okay? But it still conveys that there's a cake there. So this has to be done because the cake actually gets animated in the next scene where the brother puts the girl's face in the cake. So he's being a bully and he puts her face in the cake. So these are the kinds of changes, whichever things that from the concept design that have to be animated have to be minimalized. Please go on. And then the music session happens. So this is Lina Monaghan. That's the director. That's the music director. Pause. And then the final stage is adding the background noises, which is known as Foley. So once the voiceover is done, the music is done. So these are the layers of sound that is added to the background. So you'll have the dialogue recording, the music, and the sound effects. So this is Foley. So once the movie is created, then the Foley artist will go into their studio and make all the noises that will appear in the background of the film. And then you get the final film.
Those stories that Mum told me.
So the rain, the water, the bubbles, all these noises, all the sounds, the music, the dialogue, the drawings, the animation, the visual effects. The actual storytelling. So everything comes together. In one interview, the director said the most difficult thing to animate was the sea. So you saw the example of that. And that's the production pipeline of an animated film. Again, this was in 2014. This video is a little old. Okay, so that's the production pipeline. This is the actual making of the movie. Moving on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little analysis of the visuals that were used in the movie. And since it was hand-drawn, one of the most important things is to keep things simple. Okay? This is something that every studio struggles with because the artist will go on and make such beautiful drawings with so many layers and layers of artwork, which is not possible to animate. This is the visual analysis of the movie. So as you can see, the scenes are built very simply. And what the animators are doing while they are building these scenes, they are keeping the lines that are in the scene very, very simple. So the overall breakdown of the lines is actually very, very simple. Even though it looks pretty complex, but it is actually very, very simple. Again, you can see scenes. How very simple. So foreground, midground, background are very, very simple drawings. So the lines are very clear. And this basically makes the overall frame very clean, very neat. And it is very easy for the audience to see what is going on. There is no confusion. Every single, the foreground, the midground, the background are very clearly marked. And it is very, very easy to follow what is going on in the scene. So these are a few examples of foreground. This is midground where our characters are following, and this is background. So you can see there is very clear distinction between the three. So even in a strange scene like this, there is no confusion. I mean, you can see there's a whale, there are some seals, and there's the Selkie. So this really helped. This actually became one of the storytelling tools. They also used a lot of textures in the scenes. But these textures were very, very clearly, so this is a texture. This is a texture. The background has watercolor type texture. So these textures are very, very clearly distinguishable. They are not overlapping. They are not trying to overpower each other because of the clear demarcations. So even though they use textures, but it doesn't take away the simplicity of the scene. Okay, so this really helped them in telling the story very nicely. And then there are some repetitive motif. So motif is basically a word which is used to say something that repeats. And in this case, whenever they had to show something good, something homely, something nice, they used circular shapes, specifically concentric circles. So circles within circles. Circles within circles were used to show a sense of safety, a sense of homeliness, a sense of happiness. So in the scenes in which the characters, the people of the film are happy, are shown with these circular motif. Again, homeliness, the flip book kind of storytelling where they actually show it as if you are reading a book. Even in that, they have used this motif repeatedly. Again, concentric circles. This is a safe place for the character in the middle of the story. Again, this similar motif was used to show when somebody is entering or exiting some kind of magical place. Okay, so in this case, he's entering the place of the fairy people, and in another case, he is entering the underworld. As opposed to the bad in the movie, the people who are causing all the harm. So in the case where they want to show danger, they want to show aggressiveness, they want to show that the characters are going to face some kind of trouble, they've used straight lines and jagged edges. So this is the repetitive motif. So the moment you see these, you know that something is about to go wrong. They use straight lines to show that cities are bad. And I agree with them because we moved away as a family from the city long time ago, even, a few years before we came to Auroville. So in this case, the few things that you will see that show that this is not a good place is, one, the straight lines. Second, the muted colors. You will see that whenever the characters are in fairy tale scenarios, the colors are very heightened. Whenever they are at home, the bright colors are used. But the moment they come into a place which is not good for them in the story, they use muted colors. So this is another technique which is used to show the mood of the scene. Then this is the place where the Maka character lives. Again, very, very threatening, very, very dominating. And these are the owls that attack our characters in the movie. So again, straight lines are used to show their placement. And then these are moments in which the character is remembering his mother. So they have used concentric circles. This is another important stage in the movie where the character finds what is wrong with his arc and what he's been doing wrong. And then now he starts his redemptive journey. So again, they've used concentric. So also he's coming out of the underworld to the surface. So they've used concentric circles. And then those lines are guiding the direction in which he has to go. This is another scene where Cersei character jumps into the underworld and surprises her brother. So again, circular shape. And as she goes into the underworld, again, concentric circles are used to show the start of a journey. This is also another scene where lines are... So now, as you can see that, now I'm sounding repetitive, but I want to impress on you how important it is to use these tricks when you're telling a story. And they did a fantastic job in doing that. Very, very simple lines, less overlap, less tangents, use round shapes when showing favorable things, use sharp, hard edges when showing unfavorable things. When the characters are together, when there's something nice happening, you see round shapes. This is another very nice place where something nice is happening in the story. So basically, the Ben character is meeting the Shanaki character. Again, circular forms. You'll see circles everywhere. Even though there are so many things going on, there is very little overlap. This is the point of time that we first see the entrance to the underworld, and it is being used as if it's a magic mirror. And, that the magic mirror kind of magical thing is present. So again, when they want to show magical stuff, they use these round shapes. And then the character design, the Maka character and the Granny character, in their very, very different way, are actually doing the same thing. They are causing harm to the children. Even though, they are doing it with good intentions, but what they are doing is actually causing harm. So you will see that their character designs are pretty similar. So again, this is the family unit. This is the story of this family. So when they show them together, they use the round shapes. And when they want to show that somebody is invading that space, even though well-intentioned, you see that roundness is broken. And they are not using sharp shapes here because the granny is well-intentioned. She's not trying to harm them, but unintentionally causing harm. So you can see that how her presence invades the circular formation of the family. And then, like I said, the characters are similar. So their designs are pretty similar. The lines, the simplistic lines that are used are pretty similar. Now these tricks are used to trick people into feeling something. Because if you see some shapes doing some negative things, those shapes stay with you so that whenever you see those shapes, they remind you that something negative is happening. And then in this case, you will see that there are two characters in the movie, the Maka's son and Ben's father, who are grieving. So one of the tricks they used is that they used the similar shape to design their noses. So you'll see that both their noses are actually S shapes, but inverted. So they've used the shape S to design their nose to show similarity between these characters' stories. And then again, whenever the human is turning into Selkie, all round shapes, very cozy, very familiar. And this is mostly used for these two characters because they are magical. They are human Selkie characters. So just by wearing that coat, they turn into seals. So the mother and the daughter, who are both magical characters who can turn from humans to seals, are shown with round shapes. And one of the most important things is that even though the Ben character is shown as a very negative character in the beginning, the story is his redemption arc. So he is also shown as round shapes and not sharp edges. And the actual story is his journey through other. And everybody else, the folk tale is used to support his redemption through the story, which we will analyze in the story part of the movie. And then by the end of the movie, he's the one who turns into a superhero and goes on the journey of saving his sister.